Hello, my name is Snowlight. This is my Warcraft University, a YouTube series intended to give new and mid-tier players simple concepts towards playing World of Warcraft at a higher level. In this video, we will discuss leveling, expansions, and phasing. In older generations of the Warcraft experience, the player would have to play through each version of the game, called expansions, in the order they were released. Over time, as the expansions stacked up, Blizzard realized this was no longer sustainable, so they made it so you could choose one of two expansions as you leveled, and then eventually chose to squish all of the expansions so the player could choose which one and only one to play while leveling to 50. So with that in mind, let's look at the different expansions and touch base on a few of the finer points. If you are a first-time WoW player leveling your first character, the game is going to drop you into a new experience just for new characters, where it will teach you some of the basics of the game and default controls, something of a tutorial island. Afterwards, it will take you into the Battle for Azeroth expansion, then into Shadowlands, and finally, once it is released, onward to Dragonflight. We will discuss each of these expansions near the end of this list, since they are the most current. As a new player, I'd encourage you to follow where the quest leads you and enjoy the speed at your own pace. The first release of World of Warcraft was a fairly basic adventuring game. People needed help, you can help them for reward, and eventually you will become stronger and obtain better gear. Beyond that, there were a few interesting storyline themes, but in general, it was all about the adventuring aspect in the virtual world. It is set in the Warcraft universe they had previously established through the 3 games they had released previously, Warcrafts 1, 2, and 3, but Vanilla WoW did not spend a lot of time revisiting storylines they had previously explored. I don't want to discourage you from playing any of these expansions, but this one was pretty simple. Onyxia was cool though, gotta give her props. With the massive success of the vanilla game, Blizzard released their first expansion, the Burning Crusade, 3 years later. Blizzard played heavily into the Warcraft 3 universe, a standalone real-time strategy game they had released years before, and brought adventurers from Azeroth to the Outlands to fight the Burning Crusade. With this expansion, Blizzard took WoW from a basic adventuring game into a narrative-driven adventure with significant enemies and underlying themes. You Are Not Prepared, for example, comes from this period. Have fun facing Illidan's armies. Now we're getting into the good bits. With Wrath, Blizzard created an entire continent based on an antagonist where we already knew his backstory and what had driven him to insanity, thanks to the story of Warcraft 3. As you adventure in Northrend, the Lich King, or as we all know him, Arthas, will occasionally show up and manipulate the state of the world he has created. Everywhere you go, he is there, unkillable, unshakable, and tormented to the edge of his soul. From a narrative perspective, this expansion was the pinnacle of Blizzard's Warcraft storytelling, in my opinion. That being said, the storytelling side of it was fairly limited due to technology constraints leading up to release, so it's mostly in-game cutscenes using low-resolution characters, I'm afraid. Man, I wish they'd re-release this expansion with full storytelling reimagined as more than just a classic server. What is life like post-Arthas? Well, there are certainly other beings in the universe capable of being corrupted. Let's go find one of those. How about, yes, a dragon. Let's go with a dragon. Let's corrupt one and make it pure evil so our adventurers can kill that. And while we're at it, we're going to make this feel as awesome as possible. Okay, maybe Cataclysm didn't have the most inspired story, much more back to the theme of stuff is out there, go kill it and feel awesome. Some of the fights in Dragonflight were absolutely crazy, like battling a dragon while it's mid-flight and you're on its back tearing off protective scales and armor. How freaking cool is that? Welcome to Pandaland. Here we value traits like peace, tranquility, and harmony with all things. Have fun murdering every living creature you come across. Pandaria was a very confused expansion. Instead of a cohesive storyline, This expansion focused more on a large volume of content, much of which was through repeatable daily quests. While some players enjoyed the variety, others felt that the content didn't merge well with the theme of the Pandaren. What is worth fighting for? After all, we had already fought for our lives and the future of our world through the previous expansions, and there was no singular antagonist to fight, very much just the fight your inner demons theme, which kind of felt bad. Warlords was released alongside the Warcraft movie, which showed the canon history of Warcraft, where Gul'dan corrupted the Horde with foul magic. In Warlords, we get to travel back in time to revisit a key question. What if the Horde had rejected Gul'dan's fel-induced insanity and stayed true to their original nature? For players who were familiar with this historical context through the movie and through Warcraft 3, it was an intriguing expansion as we got to travel with heroes of old like Thrall's parents, or the new hero, Yrel. Also, Warlords brought us a significant improvement in the cutscenes from previous expansions, as well as Garrisons, which was Warcraft's first and only attempt to date towards a player housing system. With the Legion expansion, Blizzard starts us on a 3-expansion story arc, which is the first time they have done storytelling on such a long-term scale. We get to experience new playable races like the Nightborn and the Void Elves, as 2 examples of what we now know of as allied races. We get to adventure alongside Tyrande, Malfurion, Khadgar, the High Mountain Tauren, and even Odin from time to time. From a story perspective, things get bad, like really bad. Characters you would think of as stalwart and near immortal die. Without going into too much detail, this expansion very much felt like a turn from the Warcraft of old into a more Game of Thrones level of intensity. This was a very intriguing expansion, but it left a lot of loose ends, so if you choose to play through this expansion, be sure to prepare yourself for some intense moments. Chapter 2 in the 3-part arc takes us to Boralis and Zandalar. As primarily an Alliance character, I can't speak too much to the story arc for the Horde side, but the Alliance side story picks up a character that had a mostly unexplored narrative since Warcraft 3. She's always been around in WoW, but her backstory pertaining to her family and childhood was definitely on the back burner for years here. Really challenging themes of homecomings, failure, depression, and insanity coming to the forefront in her story. The other incredible character brought into Warcraft lore here was Bwonsamdi, a Jamaican-influenced deity who was so popular that he was brought back in the next expansion, despite Blizzard's original plans. Oh, and one more thing. This is the peak of the Horde vs. Alliance theme that has been core to the Warcraft experience up to this point, with raid bosses representing both sides and a temporary faction change mechanic, so all players can experience both sides of the story in a single raid. And now we come to the conclusion of the 3-chapter story. All the death brought about from the previous 2 expansions has been funneling souls to Warcraft's version of the Afterlife. This Afterlife comes in the form of 5 separated zones that represent landing places for a departed soul to reside for the rest of its existence. However, the balance of these zones is tipped heavily in the favor of the Maw, with souls funneling unendingly to the starvation of the other zones. Well, not much else to do but get everything back in balance again. The first few experiences in the Shadowlands were pretty epic, fighting off death and an escalating threat mechanic within the Maw. But as with some previous expansions, this quickly started to suffer from repeat content issues, especially around Torghast and the 8 unchanging dungeons. As of the making of this video, Shadowlands raids and Mythic Dungeons are the hardest content in the game. But what comes after the current end game? What do you have left to fight when you have defeated the Afterlife itself? How about, yeah, we're going back to dragons. The Dragonflight expansion has been announced and we are expecting its arrival later this year. We don't yet know all of the features or the lore in any detail, but once we know more, perhaps we'll be able to put out a video dedicated to this new expansion. Now this concludes the overview of the different expansions in Warcraft. So as you are leveling your alts, you can take some of these as a what kind of story do I want to play approach. Ultimately, it's up to you. Before I leave you for this video, I have one more concept to discuss. Around the Lich King expansion, Blizzard wanted a way for a zone to be changed significantly as you progress through the story. Because of this, they created phasing, which is the term for the instance of a zone that you may find yourself in. If you start a new zone, and you have a friend, here demonstrated by blue, that has already completed the story for that zone, they may see something different from what you see, and be unable to see you. If you are playing by yourself, this should not be a factor, but if another player offers to fly you around in a zone, and then suddenly the two of you become phased, that will likely create some undesirable confusion. Phasing can also be observed in raids or dungeons if the players do not enter at the same time, so just be aware that this can be a nuisance even in endgame content. If you experience phasing for more than 4 hours, consult your nearest quest or NPC for assistance. And with that, you should have enough info to work your way through the end of the game. If you found this useful, please leave a like on the video or a comment with any questions or ideas so we can continue to work on this series. The subscribe button and the bell are there so you can see when new videos come out if that is your desire. As always, please be positive in your guilds and help make WoW a fun place for everyone to play. Goodbye for now.